All right. So lots of times people ask us, hey, Pedro and Daniel, how do you guys come up with so much content? How do you come up with so many ideas for the stuff that you post, and so many ideas for possible microphone messages? And it's because we follow the Forrest Gump strategy. The Forrest Gump strategy is our way of including stories as part of our microphone messages and as part of our marketing, as part of our communication. So we're going to take you through the Forrest Gump strategy, which is the next element that you want to include, which is the use of stories as part of your microphone message. Because stories, people just love stories. They connect with people, and they make for much more effective microphone messages that break through the noise. So to start off, we're going to share the story of Pedro. You want to share this story?
Okay. So I was waiting for my flight, and I was just eating some pizza, and this kid, he came to my desk and he was saying, hey, can you purchase a slice of pizza for me? And I looked at a kid, I was like, you know what, he's probably hungry, and then he felt he's probably alone. He looked like he was like about 12 years old, and I said, yeah, sure. And I waved for the waitress, and then I told him, okay, let's buy him some pizza. And she was like, okay. So, and then he asked whatever the pizza he wanted and everything. And then he said, okay, thank you. And he went away. And I was like, okay, that's okay. That's pretty cool. And then about 20, 30 minutes later, I was working on my computer, really focused. Someone else comes up. It's an older kid, right? He was probably like 16 years old. And he was saying, hey, I'm selling some candies. And would you like to purchase one? So I looked at him and I was so focused, I didn't even pay attention. Just on autopilot, I said, no, thanks. And he said, okay. And he turned around. And as I kept working and typing, it hit me. And then I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I'm an entrepreneur. Being an entrepreneur changed my life. And I come from a humble family. So the kid is just working. Why did I give as a gift something to one person that didn't do anything? He wasn't doing anything in return. And this kid, this older kid, which is working, right? He's working. Why am I acting this way? And I was like, no, you know what? This is wrong. So I stood up, left my computer on the desk, and ran and chased the kid. So, I ran for like, I don't know, like 100 yards, almost like a football, right? So 100 yards. And when I finally got to him, he was surprised. He was like, oh, what's going on? And said, hold on. I got to talk to you. And he was like, what happened? It was like, so what candies do you have? And he was like, he was so surprised. He was in shock. He was like, oh, I have this one. It's like, you know what? Come with me. So we walked back to the table, to the desk. And then I sat down. I was like, okay, so what do you have? And he was like, oh, I have these candies. And then I asked him, why are you selling this? And then he said, I don't know who my father is. My mother works full day, every day, the whole day. So I have to take care of my little brothers. And so I decided to come to the airport to see if I can make some extra money. And I felt so touched, by his story. I could tell he was telling the truth, that I said, you know what? Here's $50. You can keep the change. And I would just have whatever you have. And he was like, okay, but he was like so surprised. I was like, don't worry. Eventually down the road, you might meet him again. Someday you can give me some extra candy. And then he said, I'm so excited because now I can purchase some new sneakers. And then he pointed at his sneakers, which were like really scuffed up and old and worn out. And it was like, okay, sounds good. And then he walked away, and then I never forgot this experience. So as I was wondering and reflecting about what just happened, I thought, you know what? I'm going to post this to Facebook. I'm going to share a story. I'm going to share a story about how you're not supposed to run your life on autopilot, because opportunities might come your way and you're not paying attention, in this case, an opportunity to help someone that it was helping himself. So yeah, we decided to post this on Facebook. And then what happened, Daniel?
So what happened was the post, it started to have a little bit of a viral effect, and we decided, what if we take Pedro's post, and what if we pay to promote it, see if it goes even more viral. So as you guys know, you can promote your posts on social media. In this case, it was for Facebook. We promoted it, and it started to go even more viral. And then without even trying to sell anything, people were so touched by the story that they were going to Pedro's profile page and clicking on links and sending Pedro direct messages asking what they could buy from Pedro. And what we noticed when all was said and done was, without Pedro even mentioning anything to buy, trying to sell anything, the promotions for that post were profitable. They generated more engagement, and they generated tons of loyal fans for our brand. And then we had an aha moment. We said, wait a second, what if we could recreate this style of post that shares these stories, that shares these aha moments, that shares these tips with people, that inspire people to then take action, so that not only does the post kind of have a little bit of a viral effect, but it also creates engagement and creates followers and creates sales all at the same time. And we said to ourselves, if we can crack this code for the type of ads that do all of this at the same time, we're basically going to be the marketing kings of the world. Right? So we decided to further develop this style of post, and we kept on using stories, and those stories would then share aha moments and then tips, and then eventually we would have people go and take hey, at the end of the story we would say, okay, so if you like this and you like these tips, then go click here to get this and go get that. And what we did is we eventually created not just dozens, but hundreds of these styles of ads, and multiple of them went viral. And they are what we attribute the most to helping us generate our following of nearly 2 million people now on social media. Here's an example of when I did this with the cookie story. Okay, this was for one of my pages. This one was for my page in Portuguese, but as you can see, 167,000 fans. I also ran this same one in English with sorry, not fans, 167,000 reactions, comments, and shares. Okay, so just tons of likes, tons of comments, 19,000 comments. I have a version of it in English that also did extremely well, and we have dozens of ads that went viral like this that got people to take action, and they've been some of our most profitable ads that have also grown our following. And remember when we told you that the core belief marketing strategy at least 3x our sales? Well, the use of stories and this type of post has 10x our sales. So yes, we attribute multiple marketing strategies to our personal success. Core belief marketing, you probably got super excited about that in that video when we shared that. But the use of stories, the way we use our stories, we feel like that they have 10x'd our sales. So we use multiple strategies that have doubled, tripled, 10x'd our sales. And this specific strategy was what helped us hit for eventually our first 1 million followers. Okay, so extremely profitable, and an extremely smart way of including stories as part of your marketing message and as part of everything that you're going to put out for your microphone message within this course. So how do we do that? Well, we use stories to help us build relationships first, and you can do the same thing as part of your microphone message. And we named the strategy the Forrest Gump strategy because one day during a live class that Pedro and I were doing with students, I opened up my phone because I keep all my ideas for my stories on my phone. And because I was trying to look up a story and remember the details of a story that I was going to share. and I shared one, and then while my notes app was open, I shared multiple stories, and then I shared like 4 stories, and then 5 stories, and then like a total of like 6 or 7 stories. And people were so impressed and entertained by these stories that they said, you know what? It's not Daniel Den that was on the live class tonight. It's Forrest Den. And then what they were saying was I was acting like Forrest Gump, just telling all these extremely fun stories. And then that
Oh, you were
inspired
on
us.
fire, man.
Oh,
He was on fire, just, connecting one story after another. People were going crazy.
they were laughing and crying, and everybody was having a great time. And it reminded us of the movie Forrest Gump. And then eventually we were like, you know what? We need a framework to better help our students create these stories. What if we call it the Forrest Gump Strategy? So we named it the Forrest Gump Strategy because of Forrest Gump. If you remember the Forrest Gump movie, one of the top 100 movies of all time according to multiple lists. And the whole movie happens with Forrest sitting on a sitting at a bus stop waiting for the bus to come. And then people come and sit by him, and he just starts randomly telling these stories. And all these stories just start connecting with people. People are just like, whoa, this is amazing. Like, all your stories are amazing. And like people, like the bus would come by and like, they were like, isn't that your bus? And they were like, yeah, I actually rather just sit here and listen to your stories. That's how good his stories were. So we decided to call it the Forrest Gump Strategy. And the Forrest Gump Strategy involves 3 P's, the 3 P's of storytelling, okay? The first is for you to use personal stories as part of your microphone message. As one of your options, you can use personal stories. Now, Forrest Gump did this when he connected to people, and for example, he talked about how he inspired the king, Elvis Presley, with his famous dance because of the devices that Forrest Gump used to wear on his legs. Okay, so that was a personal story, and it connected people because they were like, oh wow, really? You like had a hand in helping Forrest Gump? That's crazy. Also, when Forrest Gump decided to run across America back and forth multiple times over I think it was like a 2-year period, and he started this movement of people that started to follow him and run, and there was a whole reason why Forrest Gump was doing all this running. And he said it in the movie. He said I think that running for me was all about putting my past behind me. And that story really connected with people. They were like, wow, that's amazing, and everything that you did. And then what we've noticed is that with ourselves, with personal stories, we multiple times we put posts up, and those are some of our most shared content. Those are some of the things that people love the most, are those personal stories that we share. Now, why do these stories work so well? These personal stories work well. They're interesting, they're relevant and relatable, and they teach important lessons. Now, if you make the mistake of sharing a personal story that isn't interesting, that's not relevant, that's not relatable, and that doesn't teach any important lesson, then you've just wasted people's time. You hear people say all the time, don't sit there and just talk about yourself. And they're right. You don't want to just sit there and talk about yourself, but you do want to talk about yourself when the story is interesting, relevant, and relatable, and teaches an important lesson. Because if you're talking about yourself while forming those connections, because it's interesting, relevant, and relatable, and teaches an important lesson, people, instead of saying, hey, stop talking about yourself, they say, nope, here's the microphone, keep talking. And that's what we want you to accomplish through your microphone message. Remember, with your microphone message, we want people to hand the microphone back to you and say, hey, I love that story so much. I want you to share more because I love your stories, and please don't stop. And those are the kind of comments that Pedro and I receive on social media when we share the right stories with our audience. Instead of them saying, hey, Pedro, stop talking about yourself. Daniel, stop talking about yourself. They say, no, please post more. Believe me, I actually have people telling me right now, Daniel, I love your post so much. Please, can you post a little bit more? And it's like, guys, I'm trying. Like, it's not easy to entertain you guys all day, every day with these posts. believe me. But I'm doing the best that I can. So there we go. That's the way to make these stories work for you. Now, that's the first of your 3 P's. The second P is your peer stories. Okay. Now, in the Forrest Gump movie, Forrest did this by talking about Ginny, by talking about his mother, by talking about Lieutenant Dan. Okay, so he talked about the stories of his peers, the people that were one degree of separation away from him. Okay, the people directly involved with his life, and a lot of their stories were directly related to his stories. So he was able to do that. And when it comes to your microphone message, a very easy way to do that is to share your client stories, your customer stories, their testimonials a lot of the time. And we have right here from Toyota, one of the coolest, most viral videos that Toyota has ever done. They actually did it for the market in Japan, but don't worry, there's words in English and you'll understand everything that happens in the story. But this is a pure story that Toyota did about their customers in the Japanese market that went viral worldwide, and people just loved it because it shared a relevant, relatable, and interesting peer story. So here we go. 3, 2, 1.
始まりは幸せな戸惑いだった。Hello, hello, my love, hello. How much I love you, I will show in every moment that we spend. Moving forward, there's no end. I can see the world is spinning carelessly. The road will lead us far away and back, you know. Go, go. I see the rising tide in you, and the sun is shining through. Each day I see a little more. In time you'll close the door in the dark, shine your light to show your spark. Find your moment, make your mark as you grow. Go, go. I'll watch you start to run as far as you can, just like sand in my hands. I know that you can't stay.
始まりは太陽の匂いだった。
来たの。
I know, it's hard to take. This time apart can really ache. So while I learn to fly away, I love you each and every day in my heart. With every course I learn to chart, with every end there is a start, an ebb and flow. Go, go. Thank you for the love you share. You always made time to spare. I wasn't always so aware, but now I know just how you learned to set me free. I learned to be who I could be, and now I think I finally see the high and low. Go, go. Wherever I may go, you know I'll be fine. Over time I will shine. I'll make you proud of me.
Woo! All right.
Whoa.
Any dry eyes out there?
So inspiring, man. Love works invisible.
Yeah, I admit to people openly that the first about 5 times I watched that video, I couldn't help but crying. I've seen it enough now that I can control myself. But yeah, super powerful stuff. And so that's Pedro and I. We actually people have asked us in the past, if you could only use one marketing strategy, okay, so just forget everything with this course for a second, and let's talk about marketing and sales. People have asked us, if you could only do one thing in the whole entire world for your marketing and sales in order to be effective, what would you do? And the answer is, we would use customer testimonials in order to sell. Because customer testimonials, if you think about everything that we've been teaching, can show people heaven and hell. They teach lessons. They show the things that are relatable. They talk about your products and services. They talk about the desired results, and they share a story. They follow the Forrest Gump strategy. So customer testimonials are about the most powerful thing you could ever possibly do in your marketing. So as part of your next microphone message that you're launching, if you can use a customer testimonial as part of that, that might be a great way for your marketing, for your marketing to finally break through the noise with your next marketing campaign. Cool? So that's your second P option, the 3 Ps of the Forrest Gump strategy. We've got your personal stories, and we've got your peer stories. And now the third P is your public stories. So in the Forrest Gump movie, Forrest shared the stories of, for example, the assassination of John F. Kennedy and where he was and what he was experiencing at the time. He also talked about the moon landing and what he was doing and what he was experiencing at the time. If you remember the movie, he was actually playing ping pong at the time of the moon landing. Random, just tidbit of information for you. And then, of course, he mentioned how he actually witnessed the Watergate scandal. and so these are public stories, but he tied in he tied himself into those public stories to make them more relatable and to get people more interested in those short stories. It's kind of like when people talk about where they were when 9/11 happened and what they were experiencing and what they were doing. I was a freshman at college, and woke up to the phone ringing, and my roommate's girlfriend said, "You need to watch the news. Just letting you know, go turn on the news." And I was like, "Really?" And she explained it, and I didn't believe it until I saw it. So as you can see, using these public stories, talking about a public event, you can not only just talk about the public event that people recognize and can relate to as part of the stories, but you can also talk about how that affected you, and as a result, it also affected your audience. So you can mix in your own personal story to the public stories as well, or you can just share inspiring, interesting, fun stories about other people in the public, like celebrities. Okay, there's lots of ways for you to also use public stories. I have multiple of my posts. If you visit my social media pages, some of my best ones are me just sharing a story about a celebrity and then sharing my thoughts on what that story means to us and my audience. Okay. All right. So in this course, as you have seen, we've already used dozens of stories from public figures, companies, and organizations. And public stories are your unlimited source. There's public stories in the news, movies, politics, history, there's books, celebrities. And so start to build a list. Start to build a list of all your personal stories, your personal stories, peer stories that you can use, and public stories that you can use. Gather those stories as possibilities for stories that you can use as part of your next winning microphone message. So these are the 3 P's of storytelling, okay? personal stories, and then 1 degree of separation away from you are your peer stories. And a lot of times those peer stories directly involve you as well in some way. And then you have your public stories, which everybody can relate to because they're stories in the public and lots of people have heard of, or lots of people will be interested in because they are public stories. Our advice to you is to start to use the Notes app, or a similar app if you have Android. So I use Apple, and then I have multiple notes for different stories in different situations that I use. For example, I have a note specifically for my personal stories, and then I have other notes for other stories that I've gathered listening to podcasts and reading books, etc. And I've actually put all of my notes from all of my ideas for stories into a Word document before to kind of see how many stories I've gathered, and it filled at least 3 full books worth, a couple hundred pages each of stories that I've written down in my notes. And that, my friends, is Pedro and I's secret for being able to have so much content at our disposal, because on a daily basis, whenever we hear about a new interesting public story, or we hear about a cool story from our customers or our peers, our family members, or whenever something interesting happens in our own life, we take note of it so that we can gather those stories and then use them in the appropriate moments as part of our marketing messages. Cool? And so to finish this video, I want you to sit down with your team and answer the following questions. Or sit down and work out these questions yourself. What personal, peer, and public stories could you incorporate as part of your next microphone message? Also, I've got a PDF download for you that's going to be attached to this video with the goal of generating at least 50 ideas for your stories. So nice little bonus that goes along with this video for you. PDF download, because this gathering of stories is so important to your marketing in general that I want you to make the goal of having a lot of stories at your disposal, like Pedro and I have been able to do, so that you have tons of ideas for your next content posts that you're going to put out, and also so that you have lots of possibilities for the winning stories that you're going to use in your microphone message. All right, so there we go. That's our secret, the Forrest Gump strategy, following the 3 Ps. Hope you enjoyed that, and we will see you in the next video. All right, thank you for joining us in this episode of the Marketing Podcast Party. Please share this episode with your friends, family, and business partners. Also, remember that the party continues with your free copy of the Ideas That Influence book and interactive box experience. I wrote the book and created the box experience to help you with even more wildly successful marketing ideas. Head on over to bigideasbox.com to grab your copy. You'll get your copy for free. You just pay shipping and handling. Once again, that's bigideasbox.com for your free plus shipping copy of Ideas That Influence. I'm Daniel Din. This is the Marketing Podcast Party, and I'll see you in the next episode.